You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers.
What is happening? Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Seriously, I know there are a lot of things you could be doing, and I say this a lot. I say this an awful lot. I know there are a lot of things you could be doing, but the fact that you are going to spend time with me right now means a lot. It really, 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 really does. Thank you so much for hanging out, for all the support. This wild world we're living in is chock full of other things to pay attention to. So thank you for tuning into this show and, letting it be a part of your day. Thank you. I want to get right into this episode, but before I do, I just want to remind you of a way you can support the show if you so choose, and that is by doing your shopping at tonemob.com/Sweetwater. Seriously, if you're planning on buying gear from Sweetwater, tonemob.com/Sweetwater is the place to do it. It helps out in a very, very, very huge way. A portion of every purchase comes right back and helps support the show, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. So if you are planning on buying some gear, tonemob.com/Sweetwater is a way that you can have your cake, and I can have a little bite of it too. So please check that out if you are doing any gear purchasing anytime soon, and I really, really appreciate it. Okay, that's enough plugging. Let's get right into this episode with my dude, Anthony J. Resta. You're going to like this. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and with me today, I have Anthony J. Resta. What's going on, dude?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. This should be a good time. This is one of those wonderful, weird occurrences where we met through the power of the interwebs and just hit it off right away. So this should be a great chat, I think.
Looking forward to it.
So for my listeners that may not be familiar with you, this is going to be a really difficult thing for you to do. But perhaps we can try to condense your, 30 plus year history into a digestible, who are you and what do you do and why are we talking today type of thing.
Oh, wow. So, well, I mean, I'm a multi-instrumentalist, producer, composer. I've been doing this full time since the late 80s, early 90s. It's such a long story. I slept under a grand piano for like several years before I got my first break, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But, I'm the most well-known for my first big client was Duran Duran, and we had quite a run from like 94 all to about 2000. Worked on about 30 different songs as a programmer, producer, drummer, sound designer, all that stuff. And a mixer with my buddy, Bob St. John, who's a multi-Grammy mixer. We worked as a team on all that stuff. So that opened up a lot of doors for me. And then from there, I got management and started working with, a lot more well-known artists. People can, Elton John, Collective Soul, just to name a couple, but there's quite a list.
Right.
And lots of amazing independent artists, some of my best stuff.
Yeah. I mean, and then where a lot of people may not be aware of, we talk to a lot of guitar players on this show, right? Just primarily talking about the pedals and amps and tubes and all that stuff. But I think a producer is somewhat of a misunderstood role. I think it can mean so many different things that the general public doesn't even really know what that means anymore. Sometimes people are called producers when they're programming beats in their bedroom.
Sure.
Sometimes they're producers when they work with artists in a more traditional sense, the way you are. Sometimes people just get producer credits for no reason. So what
That's right.
What is your definition of the term?
Well, the old school definition, what I grew up with being in the business, was basically it's the musical version of the director of the movie. So, you're picking the landscape of the entire song, the personnel, the tempo, the vibe, targeting a market. Like, where's this going to land and what can I do to make this song and this artist, click? So, there's all kinds of different responsibilities. There's fiscal responsibilities, keeping on time and a budget, and
Right.
there's that side of it. But then there's like the overall, big picture, like zooming out and being able to micromanage thousands of decisions every day to get an outcome that you have a broad sense of what you're trying to do, and you have to be on the same page as the artist, or otherwise it's never going to work.
And how would somebody who is maybe interested in pursuing that more traditional version, what would you suggest to somebody starting out in 2022? How would you even get to that point where you were organizing a session like that?
I think it happens like with people through it's kind of like a natural progression. If you start like putting recordings together with your friends or various bands or whatever, and it really starts to click and people notice, wow, this sounds amazing, I want to work with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it starts, and then you pull it together, your resources. And I think I've always surrounded myself with really brilliant people. I mean, like, I never take all the credit. Like, I love to share all the incredible people that I've worked with over the years, arrangers, orchestrators, conductors. This engineer, Karyati Suteja, who I work with daily for 25 years, he's a monster. So it's like, I'm nothing without all these people. So the producer has to rely on a team.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I mean, in the old school sense. Nowadays, there's a lot of people, like you said, they just make a beat and then they, and that's like hip hop and pop. But all, even hip hop records, I just worked on a really massive hip hop record with a really well-known hip hop artist. We can get into that later, but it was really involved. We had, orchestral cues and everything. So it's like, it's different for every single artist and every single project.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like the answer is just start working on stuff and putting it out there and see what happens.
It's so much harder. I mean, it's so much. I mean, now we have all these incredible tools. Everybody has them. So in a lot of ways, the playing field is leveled a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody has all these opportunities. But the flip side of that is there's 6,000 songs a day coming out or something, or it might even be 60,000 a day. It's like, it wasn't like that when I started. Like, to get in a real recording studio and record a real record cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so it was hard. It wasn't there wasn't a lot of people doing it at that level. So I think it's much harder today for kids. And I feel, that even though they have all this technology and all these opportunities, at the same time, it's harder to get noticed because there's this flood of stuff. And the reason I think we're so busy is all the software and all these amazing tools don't come with, all the hundreds of thousands of hours of experience.
Right.
So that's where we come in. It's like we help people take their ideas to a new and bigger place.
Yeah. It's such an interesting career to me, because when you are primarily known as a producer, you get the opportunity to do so many different things. You look at somebody super famous like Rick Rubin, for example, and
sure,
for the most obvious example, you can see just the wide palette of artists that he's worked with over the years. You yourself have worked with an extremely wide. I mean, I just listened to that Spotify list that you sent me, and it was just like, this is all over the place. And so how do you get your mindset? Like, say if you're going into, a Duran Duran session, and then you got to flip it and go into like maybe a more hard rock band and then a hip hop band, in 2 weeks. Is it difficult to get the mindset changed?
It can be if it's quick. If you spend like 6 months on something every day, and then all of a sudden, like, you have 3 days off, and then you're like starting another record that's like death metal or something, which
mm-hmm.
I actually I've done a couple of those, and that can be like a 70-mile-an-hour haircut. No, it really can be. I mean, and I love hard rock. I mean, I grew up, as a kid, Fanatic, Sabbath, I'm from that like late 70s, Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, but I loved even like Iron Maiden, and I just loved heavy guitars. I always have. So like,
mm-hmm.
I enjoy that stuff, but you do have to switch gears, and switch around your brain.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing to think about, because I think as artists primarily, we tend to just do our thing. Like, this is our thing that we do. We are a punk rock band. We are a whatever,
sure. Right.
Singer songwriter, and trying to cross genres, which I think happens more now than it used to. But trying to cross genres, there we go, I did it, is something that can be really challenging for a lot of people, myself included. So it's an interesting skill set to have.
I loved your record, by the way. It was really innovative and cool. What are some of your influences? I know I'm not supposed to be interviewing you, but I mean, I heard
fine.
like Radiohead and like all kinds of cool stuff in your music. Tell me a little bit about your thing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What's weird about it, and the listeners know this, is like, that's not really, I had to accept that that's what I kind of do, because I don't really listen to a lot of music like that.
Yeah.
And I've heard Radiohead get mentioned a few times, Godspeed You Black Emperor, and a few other things get compared to, and I'm like, I've never really listened to that stuff.
Oh, that's cool that you just do your own thing, though.
Yeah.
And that's where we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So I started to more. It might sound really weird to people that like I've never actively avoided Radiohead. I've just never really pursued them. And I feel like I'm probably missing out on a lot of stuff that I would really enjoy. But I can't really count them as an influence at this point. But I know that they influenced my influences. So,
absolutely.
maybe by proxy, I am getting a little bit of that. But no, I very much come from that punk rock, metalcore, early 2000s Warped Tour scene. That's kind of of my background, and outlaw country and a bunch of other stuff growing up. But yeah,
cool.
So I don't know where it came from, but I told my wife when I was in the middle of making it, I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. This is not like anything that I even understand. And she's like, maybe this is what you do. And then that was like a light bulb moment for me. Like, oh, maybe it doesn't have to be what I listen to. It doesn't have to be. I like it. I'm happy with it. And that should be good enough. Yeah, that's good enough for me. So.
That's cool.
But I'm so happy to hear that you liked it. That means a lot coming from somebody with your level of experience.
Oh, I listened to the whole thing. It was really cool.
Thank you.
I
so
love
much.
sound bites. Like I grew up on like I said, Pink Floyd and stuff, and I love like those weird found sound things. I don't know where you got some of those, but there's some pretty far out stuff. I love it.
Well, the only one that I didn't record myself was the very intro. That's a little bit of a dark story, but that's basically what you're hearing there is a Russian cosmonaut falling down in a failed rocket, and that's that's the last recording that they had.
That's
of
heavy.
Him. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. But everything else was stuff that I recorded out in the field.
Super cool.
The trains.
What do you use? Like a Zoom, or what do you have for that?
The most of the time it was just my phone with the Shure MV88, which is like a stereo mic you can plug into it.
Neat.
Just
I gotta
because
get one of those.
Oh, they're great. They're really great, especially for how convenient it is, and the quality is really nice. So most of the time it was that. But the main title, which you probably heard, where the guy was getting arrested, that was really a guy getting arrested.
Oh, wow. That makes it even more cool.
Yeah, and his name was Tom, apparently. So I then constructed the story around that guy.
Oh, that's cool.
And I haven't ever revealed the full story, but there's a few listeners that actually got really, really close with their assumptions.
Oh, wow.
I'm not sure if I'll ever reveal it fully, but yeah. Anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah. Enough about me.
Okay.
Let's talk about that studio you're sitting in.
Okay.
I'm looking at it all here. The listeners obviously can't see it, but it's a really nice looking place. Tell me about it.
Well, it's here in Laurel Canyon, which is just steeped in music history, in the Los Angeles area. It's up in the hills. In the 60s, this was like a mecca for artists. There was, the Turtles and Joni Mitchell, Jackson Browne, the Monkees. I mean, it was like just a giant, artist mecca. And there's a lot of studios up here in these parts, up in the mountains. You don't really feel like you're in Los Angeles. I close the gate and it's like I could be in Maine. And,
oh, wow.
I'm Canadian. I grew up in Canada, a lot of fishing, hunting, and all that. So for me, it just really kind of made living in Los Angeles okay, because I worked at some really great studios here the first few years, like Paramount and Encore, and I had rooms there for 2 and 3 years, and I loved it. But it was like the hustle and bustle of the city and getting chased by homeless people and big hip hop parties and all that stuff. It just, after a while, it just kind of wears on you. So now I'm autonomous. I think that's the word. And it's heaven. So I found this was Howie Weinberg's old mastering facility. There's 3 studios on the property, and he moved up to the one on the top of the hill. He wanted a smaller room. This room's kind of a little bit ambient because it's pretty big.
Yeah.
And he did, like a dozen years of records here. I mean, I saw some of the records on the wall where, there's like a Nirvana and like Chili Peppers and Smashing Pumpkins, all kinds of stuff. I mean, Howie's a legend. And I see every day people walk by my door to go up to him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in a great location. I'll be like out there sipping coffee. And, there goes Steven Tyler, and, there goes the dude from 30 Seconds to Mars.
Right.
There's the dude from Foster the People. It's really cool. So I've met a lot of people up here. It's really, really great.
Yeah.
It's a cool place.
I tend to I don't have a ton of experience, but I tend to prefer studios that are kind of out of the way, and more like tucked up in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just
fun.
It's just a good vibe for me. I like it.
It's kind of a tourist destination. I mean, like I had a band here from Kentucky, recording a country album, and they were, they're like a mile and a half from the boulevard where all the stars are. It's like, so we're up in the hills, but we're also close to all of its tourist stuff. So it's a really fun place for people to come as a recording destination and hang out.
Yeah, that's kind of ideal. That's really, really cool.
Lucked out. Yeah. And the room is designed by George Augsburger, who's one of the, famous acousticians. I can't pronounce it. I can't say that. Can you say it?
I think you said it right the first time, but I struggle with that one too.
Yeah, he designed the room, and I guess he spent an enormous amount of time and he moved this one wall to my left like 18 inches to make it right. And I've had like hip hop artists open their laptop and play a song and go, "Oh my God, I've never heard anything like this," just from listening to their laptop.
Right.
There is something magical about the room. You record drums in it, and it's got this like wet, dry thing. It's really special.
That's really cool. Yeah, the rooms that you record in, I think a lot of people don't realize how big of an impact it has. So like one of my friends was a big studio nerd, and he built this really, really nice studio and spent a ton of time and hired the people to come in and do all the measurements and that stuff way beyond my brain.
Sure.
And because he's kind of nerdy about that stuff, when I built this shed, he was like, "Hey, give me your room dimensions. I want to run the ratios and see what it is." And I'm like, "Cool. I don't
That's
know."
awesome.
Like,
you need that. Yeah.
And I mean, I it was kind of stuck. It was going to be what it was. So I measured it all and sent it to him, and he messaged me back. He's like, "Who gave you these dimensions?" I was like, "My yard." And he's like, "They're really good, and it does tend to sound pretty good out here."
Yeah.
I don't have to. Most of that record was actually, not all of it, but 90% of it was 2 amps with mics and a room mic, and me with a ton of effects, and that's it. Just that's it. Like, I didn't do anything else. I did very little in the way of like EQ and compression and stuff. I just kind of matched the levels.
That's why it sounds so good.
Yeah, and it's the room is a lot of it.
Oh, sure it is. I spent 20 years in a room in Boston. I moved to LA 9 years ago, and we had this enormous big mill space, like 20-foot high ceilings and brick and beam, and we were in there for 20 years, and it was my kingdom. And I it's never gonna go away. I mean, I have so many memories, but it was one of those things. It wasn't an acoustically perfect space. But there was just magic, the way the wood sounded and it was many records there. And, I'm going to miss it for the rest of my life because it was like, I could pace on the phone. It was like 4,000 square feet. It was insane. I could fit a dozen of these in it, and I'll send you pictures of that. Sometimes I had I had giant brass birds and it was like Pee-wee's Playhouse.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
so I missed
cool.
that. But what I did was I've been selling stuff for like 8 years. I had just way too much gear. I had stuff in another whole studio in storage. I've got Optigons in storage with all the discs. I just accumulated so much stuff over the last 3 decades that there was just no place to put it in LA. You can't have a place that big. It's not affordable. So I've been, so I've streamlined down to this, and this is all my favorite stuff now, So it's mostly filled with guitars and pedals and modular synths and stuff.
Perfect. That sounds ideal to me. That's exactly what I'm shooting for. Fill it with guitars and pedals and modular synths eventually. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself staying in LA permanently?
Oh, that's a tough one. I have 4 kids and my wife, they love it here. They're in ballet and karate and French, and they have so much going on that it would be hard to move away with 4 children. But I could foresee myself being in like Prague You know,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, because I love that the orchestras there are affordable and it sounds amazing. And I've spent quite a bit of time there. And at some point, I mean, I would consider relocating, but you know, LA has a lot of opportunities and it's opened doors that I never could have opened anywhere else. So I have to say, I'm probably going to be here for a while.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's always an interesting thing because while it matters a lot less than it used to, your location, it's still like, you know, every time I go back to Nashville, I'm just like, wow, I have so many people here. Like, it's always a little bit tempting.
Yeah.
Like, I love where I live. I love the Oregon wilderness, but I sometimes I'm like, Nashville would be very beneficial career-wise for me.
Yeah,
to
it
go
would be.
to
I mean, Nashville is just a mecca too. It's like, I spent a ton of time in the 2000s there. I worked a lot with Peter Collins, who's a really famous record producer from England who, you know, 100 million records. So I used to do a lot of like keyboards and programming stuff for him. And I fell in love with Nashville. I spent months there and I really fell in love with it. I could have ended up there just as easily. I don't know. Yeah, it's great.
So when you're working with an artist, let's say you got a brand new person come in there, it doesn't matter what genre they are. Like, where do you start with them? You say like, play me one of your songs, or do you?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Usually the first thing I do is through an email exchange is I'll say, I want you to send me 5 things that are absolutely the most passionate, like things that in your heart, like just make you crazy when you listen to them, like make you so mad that you didn't do it. Like,
okay.
And I would say like 3 to 5 that have happened in the past 5 years and maybe 3 in the past, you know, 5 that have happened, you know, in your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get to know those songs intimately. And I will spend a lot of time listening to them and I want them to also tell me what they love about each one of these. It's a little bit of an assignment, you know, and it's a little bit of an assignment for me to spend some time listening to it. But I think it's super important to get on the inside of what somebody's ultimate goal is, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not ultimately want to rip off your favorite artist, but like there's whatever is in there that inspires you and makes you excited. What you need to like analyze what that is and how you can find your own way there with your own material.
That's such a cool idea because you know, like everybody has an artist or a handful of artists that made them do what they're doing now.
Exactly.
Whether directly or indirectly. You fell in love with music on some level because of what they did. And so trying to wrap your brain around that and understand that and like, yeah, maybe the hip hop guy loves Johnny Cash and you wouldn't have otherwise known that, you know? Like,
right? No, it's really important. And I think then after we exchange some ideas and, you know, generally I'd like to start with one song. Like let's do a song and see how it all goes, you know, and see if everybody, you know, is excited about it. And I find most times, I mean, over 20 years or whatever, we have like a 97% repeat business rate because we pay such close attention to what people want and what they're doing that we help them find themselves. I mean, and that's like not like every record producer, like a lot of people have an agenda, like they have their own thing and it's like, you know, they're get out of my way. This is what we're going to do. You know, it's like, I've never been like that. I'm a total like team person. So I think that's one of the reasons why I think we're in a hospitality industry. If you think about it, you know, you know, you have to make people comfortable. You have to get great performances out of them. And they're not going to get great performances if they're uncomfortable. You know, I mean, there are people that work that way. They make people terrified and then they get great performances out of them. That happens too. I've been around producers like that, you know, but it's not my style, you know.
I don't think I would want to work with Phil Spector. I'll just be honest.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thanks. You're not going to get the best performance out of me under those conditions. It'll be bad.
Yeah, it's a relationship. You know, it's like and trust. There's got to be a lot of trust because people you're making literally hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions about minute details as you go, and you have to have trust. If you don't have trust, then there's really no reason to hire the person because I always say if you're going to do all the barking, you don't need a bulldog.
That's true. That's true. That's the thing is like, well, there's no point in having a producer that you don't trust because then you're just going to question everything that they do and do the opposite. So why even have them involved at all?
Exactly. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And it's not for everybody, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
have you had to stop mid-session and just be like, you know, man, I just don't think this is going to work?
Oh yeah. I mean, in all these years, I can only think of like maybe 3 times, but yeah, it has happened. And they're funny stories. I'll just give you one.
Okay. I'm ready.
So I'm working with this band from Maine And like we have this, I go into a rehearsal room and I sweat with the guys, no air conditioning, and we work out all these arrangements, and I work out the kick drum patterns for all the sections of the songs. It was heavy,
Yeah.
And we're gonna do it now. We're gonna go in the studio and do it, and we go in to record the first song, and all of a sudden the guitar player is behind the drums, and he's showing the drummer, blacka 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 blacka. He's like playing like 7 against like whatever like Rush, and he's like, this is the new intro.
You're like, wait, what?
And I'm like, no, it isn't. And then I'm like, I think I need to go for a walk.
Yeah.
And I didn't come back. So
I see. Yeah. Like, yeah.
It's only a few of those.
I'm going to go get the proverbial pack of cigarettes. I will be back.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. So basically they got rid of him, and then we finished the project. So
there you go.
So it all worked out.
Yeah, it's such a touchy thing, and people you could get annoyed, right?
Yeah,
but you also can realize, like, he wasn't doing that necessarily because he was
hearing what he hears. He's hearing what he hears.
Yeah,
and he wanted to be like Rush, and he's in the wrong band.
Yeah, that's fine. That happens sometimes, and it's a different thing. I recorded a record with my old band.
Yeah.
We're all still friends. We just don't really play together anymore.
Well, that's a miracle. That's good.
Well, just everybody. It was never a project. It was a passion project. But most of us had kids at the time. I had one on the way. We knew we were never going to go on tour. It was just like, we want to make this record really, really badly. And so we ground it out for several years, practicing and writing. And I am really proud of the record we made. But yeah, there was definitely some headbutting going on. Like, it was just like, why won't you just play the bass part? I am playing the bass part. No, you're not. It goes like this, and you're playing this. And then it's like,
that's tough.
And so going full solo and not really having any of that anymore is good and bad, because then it's like, it's all on you.
Yeah, you can't bounce ideas off anyone.
Yeah. And weirdly enough, I always wanted to do a solo record, but I thought it was going to be like a singer-songwriter thing, and clearly it's not at all.
Yeah,
just whatever.
Surprise. Hey, your second one might be something totally different. It doesn't have to be all the same.
So that's something I wanted to talk to you about, actually, because this morning I was listening again to what I think, if I understood your text correctly, was your first
solo record.
Yeah, your first solo record. I was listening to Skulls, Skulls, Skulls.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't believe I'm hearing this right now. I literally just did something, not the same story or anything, but super similar vibe, just because I'd been listening to too much Tom Waits. And
I love Tom Waits, as you can tell.
Yeah. And so I listened to that. I was like, this is so cool. This is like really similar to what I'm shooting for a full record.
Oh, nice.
So I got this whole story I'm working on that's going to be
a concept.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be a written story, an album, and an audiobook. And the album
that's cool.
will have the same like spoken parts as the audiobook, but they have to work rhythmically with each other, and it also has to work without any music. So it's proving challenging. But when I heard that, I heard some ideas in there. I was like,
that's cool.
I'm going to utilize some of these ideas that he's.
I look forward to that. That a lot of that stuff was live to DAT, like my poetry part, because I would have, like, I think at the time I was using like an Akai KBS 1000 with 2 megs of RAM, like almost everything was sequenced, and I had an 8-track where I would dump like stereo mixes of whatever. Yeah. And I'd run out of tracks. I'd be like, during the mix, I'd be like moving the insert cables like to different parts of the songs.
Yes. Oh man.
So it was fun, but that's how I learned, that's how it all began.
So this might be a fun thing to explore for the gear nerds of the world. That supposedly this show's about gear, but it rarely is anymore. You've seen a ton of different recording technology over your time.
Oh yeah.
So where have you landed? Like, what's the heart of your rig now?
Okay. Well, I'll start from when I first started. Everything was analog, obviously, because that's how we did it, 2-inch analog. And then I love the sound of analog, and I listened to all those records, and I still love the sound of them. There is something really gooey and warm and wonderful about analog. But as technology advanced and got better and better and better, I think we finally, like maybe only in the past 5 years, really have reached a place where there's really no going back, So I'm in Pro Tools most of the time, but I work in Ableton a little bit and Reason a little bit, and so I'm kind of bouncing around. But my main station is Workstations Pro Tools, and some of the modeling things that people model, like Arturia is a company that's been really innovative in some of the models of effects they have are it's mind-boggling how accurate they are. Like I say, a Mutron biphase, a Maestro, biphase, Mutron biphase. They're so pricey, like they're thousands of dollars now. But like, honest to God, the plugin, I used to rent one all the time, and it sounds the same. I mean, so in other words, like the technology caught up with a lot of the vintage gear, and it really is hard. I mean, I hate to even to say this because I was such a diehard for the longest time. I really think the gap is narrower and narrower and narrower.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with I think sonically, this is going to sound kind of weird, I think, but sonically, I think it matters less, these days because the modeling's so good. Where the analog stuff still comes into play for me is how it makes you feel and play when you're playing it.
Very true. Very true.
And so, because I can plug into I've got some pretty good amp sims that I'm really impressed with, but I don't play the same.
I hear you. I'm when it comes to guitar stuff, that's like another whole story. And I'm with you on that. I mean, I like tube amps, and there's nothing like tube amps. I've got a J amp right to my right. Is this? I got a blonde 77 Marshall JMP, and it's so creamy and gooey, and you can get like anything out of it, and you don't get that in a plugin. I mean, there are that. I think with guitar stuff specifically, they're as great as it is, there's something still missing, Yeah. I'm with you.
I like to, if I'm going to be recording, I didn't really do this on that first record, but right now, if I'm going to be recording, what I usually try to do is I have my analog, well, there's digital pedals in there too, but like my tube amp rig set up and mic'd up and ready to rock. And then I also take a DI and run that out too. So then it's like, now I can have both. Like if I want to play around with other amps later, I can. But
that's smart.
The performance is this. I still get the performance.
I always tell people to do that. When if they're going to send me something to mix and I can talk to them before they've tracked, I say take a DI of every guitar part because I can reamp it through here through my stuff and do that. And I've fallen in love with. I became a Swart artist this year. The Atomic Space Tone. Swart amps.
I forgot about those. Those are so cool.
It's a holy grail. It's a holy grail amp. I sold my Matchless. That's how good it is.
Wow.
And I'm in love with it. And it's like, it's got tube reverb and tube tremolo, and it's like, it's to die for. And I'm like, I can run your tracks through my amp, with your DI track, and and blend it in with yours. So yeah, that's the smartest thing you can do is to take a DI.
Yeah. So do you do a lot of remote work these days then?
Well, it happened because of COVID. I was freaking out because I have high overhead. I have employees. I have 4 kids. It's like when COVID hit, it was not pretty. Because there's I work with artists in the studio. It's like, and all of a sudden that's gone. Yeah. So we had to reinvent ourselves, and we started like working, doing mixes with people from remotely. I even started doing vocal sessions with people remotely, through Zoom. And it kind of grew to the point where we were probably back to maybe 70% of our old business, all remote. And then that part of the business has stayed going. And then the other part of the business came back. So like this year I can't even keep up. It's insane. I'm 100 hours a week, but yeah, knock on wood, because it always changes, it's a feast or famine thing. But anyway, it's, so people will send us stuff, and we'll, Carioti's like a brilliant editor. He'll tighten things up, but not to the point where it's like robotic. And I'll add some layers of my thing, and like, we stay respectful to the artist's vision, and we'll give them back 2 versions, one exactly how they sent it and one with enhanced, and that's really taken off. People love it.
That's so cool. So how does that work then? So I kind of imagine, I also like to nerd out on business stuff sometimes.
No, yeah, it's so cool.
So how are you structured? I'm assuming like you're, the head of the company of sorts, and then you've got employees, like you said, you've got overhead and space. Like, how do you go about getting these clients? Are they coming from word of mouth, or are they coming because they've heard records you worked on, or who are they? Where are they coming from?
All that.
Mhm.
When you've been doing it as long as I have, and your name is on like so many records, people have like they'll look. They actually look. I'll get randomly. I'll get somebody, DMing me on Instagram. Oh my God, I found you. I'm such a fan. Like Nuno Betancourt's Schizophonic album is my favorite album of all time, and I see you co-wrote and produced that album. And yeah, it's like a snowball kind of thing, And I have management, and they help me. It's I think word of mouth is probably 88%.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 12% is, like people just stumbling across something on Instagram or Twitter, or, people find me, like just stuff like this podcast, and the thing yesterday on my Instagram feed with Elio Entertainment, like they find that and then they start digging in deep and like, oh my God, this guy did this. Oh, wow, I love his stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So, I've had a couple of DMs just today from the thing yesterday. So yeah, it's all that,
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting thing. So when you work on a project for a client, and I imagine this probably varies depending on who it is, but do you go, okay, I'm going to charge, this much for this, this much an hour or this much a session? Or do you say, I know I want production credit and get the residuals later? Like, how do you usually work on
my
that?
manager, Alan Stewart, who's been, God, he's probably 15 years at least now, handles all that stuff. And I stick to the musical side, and he does all the business side. And he's very flexible with people. He's really experienced at feeling out what they want to do. And he'll make a proposal that kind of bridges the gap between what they want and what we want, and it'll either work or it won't. It's like,
right.
And there's never any hard feelings. So yeah, I like to actually distance myself from that, because for me, it's kind of, I don't know, it just kind of ruins the vibe. I hate business. I do.
Yeah.
I really do. And there's always a way to make it work. I'm generally, there's a way to make it work.
Right. That's really cool. Cause the weird thing about the music world, and why I do like to nerd out on that side a little bit is, this is obviously less of an issue with yourself, but on the artist side, I find that it's just sort of a repeating pattern of artists kind of you can view it as they're getting taken advantage of, or you could view it as, artists just have a tendency not to read the fine print in contracts and things. And
there's a lot of that, and you do feel bad for people for that reason. Yeah, you got to be careful. You do,
Yeah, I try to say that I talk about it on the show probably too much, but I'm always like, read the fine print, check things out. I am not a lawyer, but I have read a lot of contracts at this point.
Some bad ones, yeah.
And sometimes it's like, why did you agree to that? Why you're giving them money for absolutely no reason, and that's what people want, but that's not what an artist should do.
I actually had this I was talking to Billy Corrigan in the driveway one time from Smashing Pumpkins. He's here a lot, and he signed like a 7-year deal when he was like 19 or 20, and it's like 7 years at that point in your life is, that's the prime of your life. So it's like, he has a lot of regrets over that. There's a lot of things, that didn't go exactly as he'd wanted, but, just so, yeah, you think you're getting this holy grail opportunity, but you have to really pay attention to how long you're going to be involved and how much money you're going to owe when they spend all this money on you in videos. They spend more on the videos than they spend on the album. So, all that stuff, but it's all changed.
It's changed a lot. And I think artists are in general a little bit more educated than they used to be. And I hope that continues. And I feel like the hip hop world has actually driven a lot of that, because a lot of those guys are about their business, and they'll talk about it.
And they're really good at it. They monetize everything, and they, it's good for them. It's like I used to only work on a day rate, but like the past couple of years with all the way things have been, we've learned to come up with flat rates that work. And that can be a real double-edged sword, because you get a specific thing, and it's like a flat rate, and then like you end up like doing 800 revisions and taking like extra days. Like you're really losing money every day you're here after that. So
right.
You're taking a risk when you do that. But I've found it's necessary to compete nowadays. Like people don't want an open-ended like blank check thing.
Yeah, the budgets ain't what they used to be. That's for sure.
No, that's for sure.
But also the budgets aren't what they used to be, but you can do a lot more than you used to be able to by yourself. Or
exactly.
That's
why a lot
beautiful.
of our clients come to us like with stuff that's half done or 3/4 done or whatever. So that's a big side of our business now, which never used to be.
That's super cool. That's super cool. Well, let's because like I've tricked everyone into thinking this is a guitar podcast.
We can get into guitar stuff.
Let's get into some guitar stuff.
Yeah.
What are some of your go-to guitars right now?
Well, I mean, I just became a Cower endorsement.
Doug's awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
Doug's amazing. He's that guitar like changed my life. I mean, it was like, okay, I have all these great old guitars. I mean, I can't show you the picture, but I have a room full of guitars. I mean, they're everywhere. And I love old harmonies with flat wounds and, like I like a lot of funky weird stuff. I got a Hagstrom with like, it's got sliders on it and it's got all these crazy weird, and I get like really awesome sounds. And I got used to doing that, the last 15 years. I mean, I like quirky beat up old guitars. I got a K from the 50s with Kleenex box pickups. I mean, you've ever heard those?
I love those. I love those.
Dude, that stuff, it's wonderful. But then I got, this
Is that a
Cower.
Speed Demon? Is that what that one is?
Which one?
The K Speed? It's the K Speed Demon? Is that the one you're
I have
talking
to show
about?
it to you. It's a big wooden thing.
Okay. All right. I played
It's-
a Speed Demon one time and I should have bought it.
It's nuts. And I bought a lot of them in the 90s, in the 2000s when they were affordable. Like all these guitars from the 50s and 60s. It's insane now what's happened. But anyway, I played the guitar that Doug made, and it was like I've been driving like a standard transmission my whole life. And then I finally got power steering. I literally was like, what is this? I mean, I was like, it was weird. I mean, it really messed my head up. So I was like, and I felt bad for my other guitars because it's like I started neglecting them all.
What model do you have there?
I have a Banshee Deluxe.
Nice.
It's
so beautiful.
But the sounds, I mean, he's got these, out of phase options and things, and the pickups are the Filtertrons. But the way he's got them like wired, it's like I can get like, it's insane how many different tones I can get. Like say an overdrive pedal. We can talk about some of my favorite overdrives and stuff too. But one pedal and one amp in that guitar, it's like I can literally get 50 sounds. It's like before I felt like, okay, you plug it in and you got that and that. So yeah, it's been a life-changing thing.
That's awesome. Doug's been on the show.
Oh, cool.
Two or three times. Yeah, I know him pretty well. And he's a great guy. I love talking to
I'd
that
like
guy.
to get to know him more. We've been kind of, getting to know each other better through DMs and stuff, but I'd like to see that. I'll go back and look at that one.
Yeah, he's fun. This most recent one was really, really good because it kind of, for people who don't know about the difficulties of running a guitar business.
Oh, it's hard.
He was very open and talked about a lot of the struggles and challenges with that. And that was, I think, really important for a lot of people who think they want to start a guitar company. Like,
to compete with somebody like him, it's really difficult,
Yeah.
But the thing he did with the Plek and all that stuff is like another whole. I think that's part of the reason why the guitar plays like something like that. I mean, all that stuff, the technology behind it is different.
Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. Doug's awesome. But yeah, let's move down the rig a little bit. So what are some of your favorite drive pedals you've mentioned?
I've got to look over here. I have a custom Pete Cornish that was made for me by Pete. And,
what?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'll start at the top,
Yeah.
So it's a really funny story. So I was working, I was working with Duran at the time, and somebody, like a salesperson for another audio company, I'd done like an article in EQ magazine or Electronic Musician or something. One guy, have you ever heard of Pete Cornish? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, he makes these pedals in his kitchen with his wife, and they're like incredible, And I'm like, really? He's like, oh yeah, he does them for like Gilmore and all these people. So he put us in touch with each other. And I talked to him on the phone, and I said, yeah, I like, I explained all the different kinds of things I like. I have old tone benders and old maestros. I'm into crappy old fuzz and stuff. I like, it's always been part of my aesthetic, the Pulp Fiction vibe, And he's like, well, what do you love? And we just started talking about stuff. I said, well, I like my tone bender Mark II, but it's like really noisy. And like, I like, like my Meatball from Love Tone, but it's like, it's so we just talked for a while, and he says, I'll tell you what, I'm going to send you a pedal, and I want you to play around with it and tell me what you think. And I said, oh, that's cool. So this pedal comes in the mail, from, I think the other guy actually forwarded it, or the guy that, Ron Berger was his name. I just remembered his name. I can't believe that. Anyway, it's funny how your brain works. And I got the package, and I opened it up, and on the side it says Jubilee Concert, Paul McCartney, like whatever it was and I'm like, oh, and I'm like, cool. It was black, and I had a blue light, and I plugged it in. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. It was like crazy sustain and warm, cushy fuzz. It was like nothing I'd ever heard before. So, I got him on the phone, and he said, you like it? I said, I love it. I love it. I said, I tend to like something a little more, with like a dirt overdrive, and less of the massive fuzz because I've got all that stuff. You know, I'm
Right.
looking for something a little more versatile. He's like, okay, I'm going to make you something special, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so he built me one, and it's just called an Anthony J. Resta fuzz. And he sent it to me, and I loved it, but it was gray and it had an orange light. So he says, "Do you love it?" I said, "I love it, but I kind of got used to Paul's because it was black and it had a blue light." And he goes, "Oh, you're one of those." But I mean, I sent back Paul's. You know,
Yeah.
I would have liked to have kept both of them. How cool would that have been to have a McCartney fuzz? You know?
Hey, you got to play it though. I mean,
yeah,
that's
I know it's the one he used on Sergeant Pepper's. You know?
What? Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
I mean, not the original, but like that's
Right.
the design. You know.
Yeah.
And his stuff, I mean, if you can't, there's a sticker on it that says if you crack the sticker, you know, you lose your warranty or whatever. Like he doesn't like people opening them up, but I'm sure somebody has. But they're probably all gooped up, you know.
I've seen some Cornish insides, and I don't remember. It was so long ago, like a deep in a gear page post somewhere, and it was like one of those things where it's like, is this real? I don't know if this is real or
he's
not,
a mythological level. But then there's a lot of pedals like in that mythological space, and we can go through some of those. Like I'm sure you know the Zen Drive, the early 2000s Zen Drive with Alf's signature on the inside.
Yep.
That thing is like it. There's some kind of soul in that thing. It does have something. I don't know what it is. I guess people say it sounds like a Dumble. I've actually got to play around with Dumbles. I was working at a studio. It was Paul Allen from Microsoft has this studio in Beverly Hills.
Yep.
It's like, 50 feet of glass. It's like, and everything moves like electronically.
Yeah, because he's a huge music nerd and guitar player.
Yeah. He actually died, I think, a couple of years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I worked there with on an orchestral version of a Duran Duran track, "Ordinary World," and there was like all these $60,000 Dumble amps flying around. It was crazy. So I mean, I've actually got to hear what they sound like, but I couldn't do it like right next to the Zen Drive to see how close it was. But that's what I hear that it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an amazing drive. The Chandler germanium,
Yes.
the blue one with the two channels.
Yeah.
It takes two 9-volt batteries. That thing, I just love that thing. It sounds like a Beatles console, like it's like Revolution or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then I'll keep going if you want. Can I keep going?
Keep going. Your favorites. Just hit me with your favorites.
Broadcast, UK, Hudson, UK. The Broadcast.
Those are awesome. I can't believe I don't own one yet.
Dude, anything
It's
from him.
so
he
good.
made me a custom pedal too, which was one side was a tone bender and the other side was an OC75 something. But you can play with the two channels, and it's like he makes like his stuff is just I don't know what it is. It's great. Hudson UK.
Yes.
And let's see, we're still on overdrives. I have some Death by Audio stuff, Fuzz War, Supersonic Fuzz Gun. Some of
Here's one.
Oh yeah. I love his stuff. Yeah, his stuff's great. Super cool. I have to actually walk around a little bit to see. Dude, I'm kind of addicted to fuzz and overdrive pedals. I think I have like, I don't know, less than 50, but not much less.
Right.
It's hard to find one that I don't have. I like Plumes by Earthquaker.
Yeah.
It's a great pedal, You don't have to spend zillions of dollars to find cool stuff. A lot of the vintage ones, I have a vintage USS1, which is this giant Oberheim thing.
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
It's about this big, and it's got like these channels on it, and it's got sliders. And basically, it's like all the early Maestro pedals in one. So Tom Oberheim designed it like 1971. So it's got like a sample and hold filter thing. It's got a fuzz. It's got a all this stuff. And it's nuts. I traded a Hammond C3 for it. That's how rare it is.
Wow.
I had no room for the C3, and this guy offered it to me. I'm like, all right, why not? So yeah, and I love the old Maestro stuff. I've got a couple of different incarnations of the original Maestro fuzz, and I'll say a nice plug for Maestro. They just got back in business, and they sent me one of these FZM. I'm gonna show it to you. I got it right here.
Oh, he's migrating. Here it goes.
Plug it.
It's coming back.
Yeah, this one.
Oh, yeah.
And man, I was shocked. I was actually shocked at how good it sounded. It's crazy. It's got a modern and classic mode, and it's beautifully heavy, well made. I was shocked. I just used it on a project with this artist Asia Renee. She's like kind of like neo soul meets trip hop, and man, I loved it. So yeah, I mean, I can go on like for hours on fuzz. I don't want to take up the whole podcast on fuzz. If we can move on.
Well, the thing is fuzz is sort of my thing too. So
okay, yeah. Tell me about some of your favorite fuzzes.
Well, I just held up to the camera. The audience obviously couldn't hear it, but I love that Death by Audio Fuzz War. This is actually Fuzz War. I didn't realize this when I bought it. I just thought it sounded awesome, but I bought it years ago for like $100. And it's Death by Audio's Fuzz War number 37 that they ever made. Yeah.
Probably, probably goes for like 1,500 or more now.
I think they're at least like 6, which I had no idea. I don't know. Actually, I haven't looked in quite a while. Maybe it's more than that. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's funny because like it was sold. It still has a sticker on it. It was sold at Motor City Guitar for $150 at one point.
That's beautiful.
Somehow made its way over to Portland, Oregon, where I grabbed it for $99 just because I thought it ripped. And now every time I post it, people are like, "You got a 2-knob Fuzz War." I'm like, I didn't even know how uncommon that was when I first bought it. I had no idea. So
I love his supersonic fuzz gun too.
Yes. I mean, their new germanium filter, I didn't think I was going to be that excited about it, but my dude, Stefan from the Pedal Zone did a demo on it. And I was like, whoa, I might need to get that.
I'll have to check that one out.
That sounds cool.
There's one other fuzz, that really rare, weird one that I want to tell you about. There's a friend, this is another great story. I'm so full of these stories.
I love it.
I gave up alcohol in 2017 because I had a tendency to buy stuff that I didn't remember buying. I mean, and I'd wake up, I wrote a song called Black Eye in Brooklyn. It's like, I just wake up in Brooklyn with a black eye, so like it was only about 7% of the time. Like I was 93% like totally functional, but you get to a point where you're like, I'm done. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that summer before I gave up alcohol, I got a package in the mail, and it was from Yaroslavl, Russia. And I'm like, what is, my wife's like, what's this? She used to live in Yaroslavl. She speaks Russian. She's American, but I'm like, I have no idea. And I opened it up, and it was this crazy pedal, like with a patch bay and all these patch points. And like, it was like a multi-channel delay fuzz thing made by this dude. It's Esai and Aha.
Yeah.
So we became friends on the internet, and he built me this thing and sent it to me. And I love him. And he's been going through a lot of hard times, with mental health issues, and he's, chemical stuff, and he's getting fixed up. But his company, it's a great company to support his stuff. He sent me this thing called the Brahm Fuzz. I can't even explain it. It's like nothing else I've ever heard. It's like, it's apocalyptic. I'll have to send you a clip of it. Anyway, like I can go fuzz all day. And I have all these wonderful friends that I met in the pedal community on Instagram, and you just want to name them all because, Cascade Pedals makes that MOSFET fuzz. Mm-hmm. It's just like the old green one, the MOSFET, the green Ibanez one that goes for like...
Oh, right. Yeah.
Tim Pierce uses those. And, I work with Tim all the time, by the way. We're in the same neighborhood. we go on walks together and stuff. Like he's probably played on 100 tracks of mine. I mean, he's an amazing guitar player. And he's always turning me on to cool stuff. But so Cascade Pedals makes a really good version of that. So, Sonny, I could talk, like I said, for the rest of the hour on fuzz, but we have to move on.
So you mentioned that you got that Marshall and the Swart.
Yeah.
Is there any other go-tos that you have on hand?
I love it. I have an old Supro. It's I think it's called it's either a Thunderbolt or I forget the name of it. It's a 2-channel big gray thing. It's super loud, but it's clean, which is like, it's hard to make it distort. So, it's great to put a fuzz pedal in front of it, obviously. And it's really, really gnarly, very Jack White. And we can get into those too. I mean, I've got some early Supros, the Rezo Glass, like the 60s ones. A couple of those are one of my go-to like fuzz guitar sounds. I love those things. There's something about the Rezo Glass and those pickups. I don't know what it is. It's just
Jack White really messed the market up on those, didn't he?
Oh, he did. Because back when I bought mine, well, one of them I got, I think for $600. It was a 64, a white Martinique.
Wow.
$600 back in like 99 or something.
I don't even know what they are now.
They're like $328, Yeah, it's a piece of plastic,
It's really strange how that happens in the market sometimes. I've talked about this on the show a lot, but I have an 81 Les Paul Custom in white. Well, now it's yellow, but it was white at one time.
Yeah.
And I love that guitar to death. I got it a few years ago, and I paid like right around $2,000 for it. You know, which was a fair. It wasn't like I got a crazy deal. It was a fair market price at the time. And then Adam Jones comes out with that Silver Burst set, like the replica of his 79 Les Paul Custom in Silver Burst. And overnight, like all of a sudden, that Les Paul Custom that I have in white is about 45 or 5, and the Silver Burst ones from the same era are like $10,000. Just all of a sudden,
isn't it crazy?
One artist can totally just jack the whole market up on something.
It's wild. So insane. That happened with Jack White. You know, I love his triple fuzz, or what that, you know, what's that one with the 3 things on it? The Jack White one?
The triple graph. Yeah.
Yeah, triple graph. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that one.
I actually did a whole interview with the Copper Sound guys talking about that whole process and how that came out. And that was really a fun
I read
episode.
about it. It was crazy involved, right? I mean, it was unbelievable. I was lucky to get one in the second batch. I love it. I love it. The octave thing tracks really, really amazingly.
It was kind of funny because I didn't realize it at the time, but I got home from NAMM and then immediately, literally, like got home, landed, and immediately got in the car and drove an hour to go to the Rockin' Tours concert. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was playing the prototype triple graph at that show. Yeah. So it was like, oh, I actually heard that in action when Alex was describing it to me. I was like, oh yeah, I was there at that show on that tour. That's so crazy.
Well, you might know my friend Heath that runs Boston Guitar. Do you know Heath?
I don't.
He runs Boston Guitar. He's like a dealer for Copper Sound, and he got me one of those switches things that, you know, it's like a, you know,
the stutter
in and out stutter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I love that thing too.
Yeah, they're good people over there. Alex has been on the show a couple times, and yeah, he's a great dude.
So many wonderful people in the pedal world. It's really cool.
It's hard to
love the Chase Bliss stuff. Like,
absolutely.
We can go and get, that's another whole realm, you know.
Absolutely. Shout out Joel. Thanks for supporting the show, Joel.
Thanks,
Joel's
Joel.
the sponsor of the podcast. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, he's great.
Oh wow, we're really going for it. I just realized what time it is, and I still have to dive into a couple of the classic questions.
Okay.
Before we wrap up the main section of this podcast.
We didn't even get onto choruses and delays. We'll have to save that for next time.
Hey, we can do it again. Oh,
we'll do
this is fun.
One.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
But before I get into the classic questions, I do like to give the guests opportunity to shout out anything they want to shout out. You know, if they got a project they want to plug, or if they want to shout out their, you know, great aunt or whatever. The floor is yours.
Oh man, I'll just shout out my 4 kids and my wife, my family. That's the most important thing.
There you go.
They're amazing. My daughter plays violin. She's actually the concert master of the LA Youth Symphony. She became that at 11.
Wow.
And they're going to Carnegie Hall on June 22nd. So she's playing. I mean, I'll have to send you a clip of her. I mean, it blows my mind. And my son's really great pianist studying classical piano. He's 9. So we have little jams. I had Cameron Stone. He's a very famous cellist who does a lot of sessions for me. He came over to the house, and the kids, and they were like playing stuff like together as a trio. I'll send you a clip. It was like I was crying. So for me, it's like there's nothing greater than family. So that's who I'm going to shout out. I can go to my Instagram page to see all the other shout outs.
Perfect. I love it.
My wife, who puts up with me, that's, you know, she deserves a medal for that. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm like the extra kid. Like I never grew up. You know, that's why I'm crawling around on my hands and knees with pedals all day. I mean, how do you grow up when you do that? You know.
Oh man, yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we got the final questions, and we'll slide over to Patreon and get real weird.
Okay.
Okay. So the final questions. First one. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
Oh, slow gear.
Ooh, slow gear. I'm not 100% on this. That might be the first time the slow gear has taken the favorite Boss pedal spot.
Dimension D number 2.
Okay. Good pulls. I like those. And I like how when I originally started asking that question, I thought it would be something that people would go, No, almost everyone is like, this one. Like they all have it just right there.
You know. I like the Feedbacker one too, I got to say.
The Feedbacker's good. Yeah. Feedbacker's awesome. I love Boss. Boss makes such, oh, hey, look, a blues driver right here.
They're great.
I love Boss. Okay, and this is the controversial one. This is the
Okay.
one where people get a little dicey, families break apart. It's a pretty serious question.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Do I need to take a shot? Do I need to get off the wagon for this?
You might have to. You might have to. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, I'm gonna go with margarita on one side and pepperoni the other.
Oh, all right. So you like a thin crust, a thicker crust? Do you have a favorite pizzeria?
Oh, dude, I mean, I'm from Boston. We had the north end of Boston and Little Stevie's Slice. I like the New York style.
Mm-hmm.
I like the deep dish. I like pizza, but I like in Studio City, Medici's. I love going there. Have you ever been there?
I have not.
Oh, they have the big ovens and they just do it right there in front of you. It's great. I love pizza. I love pizza.
Who doesn't love pizza?
Yeah,
if you don't love pizza, I can't be associated.
Yeah, it's like if you don't listen to the Beatles and you don't like pizza, forget it. You're out.
You're out of the club. Get out of here. Go home.
I can do ham and pineapple on a pizza. I mean, we can go for pizza for like a long time if you want to go with pizza.
Yeah. I mean, pizza pedals. It's just a beautiful thing.
Oh, that thing looks so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that question is why that pedal is, or it's not why that pedal happened. It's why I was involved with it. It's like,
that's amazing.
I asked that question onto every guest on every single episode, pretty much since episode, like, I don't know, 17 or something like that. I can't remember.
How many do you have? How many episodes? What number is this one?
I don't know. I think this might be 288, 290.
Holy crap, you are a veteran.
somewhere in there. And then
wow, I had no idea that was that long.
Yeah, it's been going since 2015 or 2016. I can't remember. I think 2015.
I'm really thrilled and honored to be here.
Yeah. Well, I'm stoked to have you. This has been a great chat. Let's carry it over to Patreon. What do you say?
Sure.
All right. For Anthony, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, there you are. There you have it, and there you go. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Please go check out Anthony on Instagram. He posts a lot of stuff over there. Please check out the bonus content if that is your thing. If you like this show and it does something for you and you'd like to help keep it going, patreon.com/tonemob is the place to go, where for $5 a month, you will get extra bonus episodes beamed to your ears every single week, including more chat with my dude Anthony. We really had a good time over there. We got into some slightly heavy things. We got into a little bit of gear stuff. It was really, really good. And I think you will really, really enjoy it. So please go over there and check it out. And please support the show if you can. It's also available as a premium subscription option through Apple Podcasts. So if that's your format, you can check it out there and that can work as well. Thank you so much. I'm serious. I don't mean to get too sappy, but there is a lot of chaos in the world, as we're all aware. And I'm going to address it at some point to the best of my abilities. But mostly I want this to be a break from that. Mostly I want this to be a place you can go and not hear about all the chaos that's happening. But at times I've got to address it, and I've got to try to do my best to help, which is a pittance in the grand scheme of things, but it just is what it is. So please bear with me if I do end up breaking character a little bit. Not that I'm really playing a character, but breaking from the norm and kind of getting into some areas I'm probably not qualified to talk about. So I hope you all are safe out there. I hope you all are doing well. Again, thank you so much. I appreciate you much more than you probably will ever know. So talk to you very soon. Stay cool, stay rad, and keep checking out the podcast. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, So why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.